Well, good afternoon. Welcome everybody to our webinar. We are just about to start. So please, before starting the session, be sure that you can scan the QR code that is shown below, and that way you will join the PowerPoint presentation that is will be presented today. You will need to use the second device to scan. So please be sure that you take a minute before starting today to scan the QR code. So we're just about to start. I'll give you 1 extra minute, and then you can join with your second device to be sure that all of us are getting through the presentation and get ready. Okay, welcome again. We're glad to see you here. We're very happy to start this great webinar today, the power of PowerPoint lead to teach maths in ESL classes. Let me introduce you, who's going to be presenting this webinar today, is our teacher, Mr. Orlando Hurtado, who is a very well-experienced math educator. He has more than 31 years of experience teaching maths in different countries. He started teaching in 1992, a long time ago. And along all this time, he did a lot of contributions to develop the way of teaching maths in different schools. Mr. Hurtado's expertise span across various education platforms, including 18 years of experience at the IB, IECSE, and KSS3 national curriculum levels. He has good knowledge of as an IB examiner. He has more than 15 years doing this duty as well, and he was particularly going to analysis and approach at the standard level, having a deep understanding of assessment practices and curriculum standards. He has dedicated 6 years to examining IECSE 0607 International Maths Paper 6. On his extended career, Mr. Hurtado has demonstrated his commitment to develop and enhance the teaching of maths around different schools, and he has created a lot of didactic resources that demonstrates that really helps through the way of teaching maths to different levels of students. As well, he has presenting the webinar today. He has a big passion for teaching maths, and that's the way that he is sharing today all that little part of this experience with us. So hopefully you will find a lot of resources today that certainly, I'm sure, will be helping you through the teaching maths using the PowerPoint. So let's begin. So let me introduce you to Mr. Orlando Hurtado. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be with you today to develop this webinar that will help us to maybe increase our skills in teaching mathematics. I'm not going to tell you how to teach mathematics because I know that all of you are experienced mathematicians. You have a lot of experience and great expertise in teaching math. But I want to share with you my suggestions in using this great resource, which is the PowerPoint Live, when we are teaching mathematics. Okay, I'm not sure if some one of you have experience using this tool, which is PowerPoint Live. I know that many have been using in the past PowerPoint presentations, right? but I want to see how PowerPoint Live has some features that help us to improve in mathematics especially, which is why we are focused today. So then, welcome to our webinar. This is our agenda for today. First, we're going to go to see the challenges faces in the mathematics classrooms. Then we're going to see some of the benefits of incorporating PowerPoint Live presentation into math lessons. After that, we're going to see the benefit of using PowerPoint Live presentation in math lessons and how do we start the PowerPoint Live. I hope that you all have scanned the QR code for this presentation so then you can see in live how this PowerPoint Live presentation works, right? If you didn't scan the QR code at the beginning in the chat, you can see that there is an address that you can type in your browser. So then you can join to the PowerPoint Live presentation and follow as I am explaining what are the characteristics and the benefits of using the PowerPoint Live presentations. I'll just scan the QR code. Otherwise, please join by the address that is on top of your screen now. So you see on the top of your screen, you see an address that you can still type in a second device. Don't do it in the device that you have the webinar, but you can do it in a second device to follow along. Okay, so after that, there will be a space for question and answer that you can ask. And finally, conclusions and closing remarks. So let's start. And as I said, I'm not going to tell you how to teach mathematics, but I'm going to tell you what are some challenges that we face when we are teaching math. In my experience, I have seen many challenges myself, and I've seen also comments from students about the mathematics classrooms. Do you see this picture on your screen? This is one of the challenges that we as teachers of mathematics face. What do you notice in here? Well, our teacher is teaching math lesson. He is focusing writing on the whiteboard, or in this case on the blackboard. He is doing some diagrams. He is solving some equations, and maybe he is explaining at the same time. But do you see that he's basically talking to the screen or talking to the blackboard? He doesn't have a visual contact with the student. He doesn't see what is the reaction. And we see this another photo, this another picture of another teacher, right, that is focused and embed in explaining the solution of a problem on the screen. But still, again, we can see that the visual contact with the students is not happening. So what happened when we are teaching math? So do the teacher really have to write on the board, either chalkboard or whiteboard or smartboard? Do we really need to write on the board and don't look at the students? Well, our objective in the math class is that the students understand what are we trying to say. It's not for us to solve a problem. It's not to show that we are good and mastering and solving problems. We are explaining to the students and trying to make them understand what happened in the meantime while you are writing on the board and you are solving a problem on the board. You see what happened when the teacher is writing on the board. What happened with the students? Well, they are not paying full attention. You can see that maybe one or two of them are trying to write what the teacher is writing on the board, but the other one are just maybe looking at the teacher, or some of them are chatting. So this is some familiar situation that happened in the classroom while the teacher is writing on the board. Is that true? Does this happen to you? Okay. Is there a way to improve the student engagement, the understanding, and the time management? Because you see, when you are writing on the board, trying to solve a problem, or drawing a graph, drawing a diagram on the board, that make us to spend some time that we can easily use for learning of the students. So basically, when we are writing on the board, the students are not learning from writing. So what do we need to do? We need to do a better time management to help the students to understand and to have more time to show that they can do what we want them to do. So how can we benefit then from PowerPoint presentation in math lessons? What are some of the benefits that we can find when we use PowerPoint presentation in our math lessons? Okay, one of the things that we can have is a visual engagement and retention from the students. So the students can be looking at the board. The problem that you are solving is already there. You need to write step by step whatever you are going to explain, because everything is in advance written on the PowerPoint, and then you only make a click, and what are you going to do is appearing on the screen. So the student then don't lose time. We don't waste time in writing. We have everything written, and we can use the time to explain. And also, when we have explained them, so then we can have a visual contact with them. We can see their faces. We can see if their reactions, and we can see if they're understanding or not when we are explaining, instead of writing on the board and looking at the board. So let's see some examples of PowerPoint presentation for visual engagement. For example, you are working on the topic about rotational symmetry. Okay, this is a PowerPoint on rotational symmetry. So you present some shapes to them, right? That in a click, they will be on the screen. So then you explain to them what is rotational symmetry, and they visually see what rotational symmetry is. So they can understand easily what you are trying to explain to them about rotational symmetry. And this is a very engaging presentation, right? Because the student can see and they can understand by visual engagement. So you don't need to explain too much in words, because everything is there in the presentation for them to know what is rotational symmetry. So we have different shapes, then they can visualize what is meant by rotational symmetry with just a click for showing to them on the screen what is happening and what is the meaning of rotational symmetry. So then it's a visual engagement, and this make the retention better for them. They can retain in their brains what is the meaning of rotational symmetry. That is the lesson that I'm showing to you now in this presentation. So what about when you are working with enlargement, transformations? So how do you explain transformations? Writing on the board or drawing diagrams on the board? It could be easy, could be something that we can do, right? And maybe in the past we used to do it, drawing all the grid on the whiteboard and drawing the shape and explaining how to rotate the shape. But it would be easy if we have a PowerPoint like this one, where we have the grid, we already have a shape that will be rotated. We put the statements on the screen. We say, okay, rotate the shape and whatever we want them to do. So then we explain step by step what is happening, and we visually illustrating how to do the rotation. We plot the center of rotation, we plot it in the screen, so trace the shape, and that is in just a couple of seconds. We don't waste too much time to do it. So then we explain how to make the rotation, right, using a tracing paper, and then, well, that will be easy for them to follow along with your explanation. And at the same time, they can be doing what are you doing on the screen in their own workbooks. So then that will be a visual engagement for the students. Or let's say we want to explain angles in the unit circle, right? In this topic, how long do you take to draw this on the whiteboard or the blackboard? Well, it will take a long, but we already have in the presentation what we want to explain to them, and explaining, for example, what are the coordinates of the point P, trigonometric coordinates. We can draw all the angles. In this case, this presentation have angles at every 10 degrees. So the angles are already labeled at every 10 degrees on the unit circle. And we can explain that the point is the coordinate on the point will be always cosine of the angle, sine of the angle, and then they visually can see what the coordinates of this angle can be, right? So given that the angle is this one, and we can see that at this point the angle is in between 50 and 60, so it's something that straight away you are explaining to the students, and there is more time for explaining to them, looking at the reaction, have a visual contact with them, so to see their reactions, to see if they are understanding what are we explaining, right? And if you are following and you scan the QR code, you can see in the presentation that everything I'm saying now is transcribed in your presentation. Do you notice that? All my words, all my explanation are transcribed in your screen. If you have scanned the QR code and you are joined to the PowerPoint lead presentation. So this is something that also is helping to the students, because when they are getting the class, when they are getting your explanation, maybe they cannot hear you properly, but they can read what you are saying. And one another thing that is very nice from the PowerPoint leave is that the transcription that you have in your screen, that in this case is in English, because I'm speaking to you in English. But what if for the students, English is not their first language? Sometimes when we are explaining to them, they cannot understand everything that we are saying. If you see in your screen, there is a button for change the language. And you can change the language now if you want. You can click on change your language, and the transcription will be in the language that you want to be transcribed. So, for example, if you want to transcribe in Hindi, you can click Hindi, and the transcription will be in Hindi. If you want to transcribe in German, you click on German, and the transcription will be in German. If you want to transcribe into Spanish, you click on Spanish, and the transcription will be in Spanish. And all my explanations are going to be translated in real time to the language that the student can understand. So this is another nice feature of the PowerPoint Live presentations. Not only the PowerPoint itself, but the PowerPoint Live presentation that have this special feature where there is a transcription of whatever you are saying. And the students, they can follow your explanations. And what else they can do? If they want to keep your explanation for them to read it later, they can make a screenshot of the screen that where your explanation is there, and they can have this explanation saved in their devices. And later, maybe they want to see what is the explanation of what I am saying, so they can read it again. That will be a very nice feature that helps the student to increase their understanding. Apart from visual engagement and retention, we have a second benefit of using PowerPoint presentation in math lesson, which is the structured content delivered. So in the PowerPoint, the content is structured in a way that the student can follow along. Okay, what are some of the benefits of that? For example, I have this presentation about geometric series. The first presentation, the first slide of the presentation contains the title, contains the learning objective, contains the date. So then this is the first part of the presentation. So the student know exactly what is the topic that you are going to deliver today in the lesson. So after that, we continue with the introduction of the topic. This is just some slides where the introduction is explained to them with some statements about introduction of what geometric series are, and then explaining how the terms in the series comes, right? And then this is just the introduction for the topic that is about geometric series. So explaining with this in the introduction. After that, we are trying to derive a formula for the geometric series. And this is what I'm trying to do with this slide, explaining visually how to get the formula that will help them in the future to work any geometric series. So this is the next part of the presentation. And after we explain to them how to derive the formula and come up with the formula, we have the formula that is coming from the explanation that I'm giving, explaining how can we derive a second formula that helps them to come up with the geometric series, and we have the two formula on top of the screen to solve a problem. So then the next part of the presentation will be solving a problem with examples. So I put some examples to solve the problem, and we can ask the student what formula are we using in this case, right? Because we explained that the first formula, the green one, is when the ratio is greater than 1, and the second, the blue one, is when the ratio is smaller than 1. So then they can follow up and they can understand what is going on the presentation and what is the solution of the problem. How can they solve the problem and how can decide in the using of the formula in the problem that they will be solving. So this is just some examples of solved examples in the presentation, right? We have many examples for each topic for the student to have an idea, or from small, easy problems to more challenging problems in the presentation. And also the slide presentation that we have in our website include a section for using calculator, because now we know that the calculator is a tool that the students are using, and most of the exams and the exam boards, they allow students to use calculators in the exams. So they have to be familiar with the use of the calculator, how to explain to the student how to use the calculator, what keys they need to press each time for solving the problem in the calculator. So then, and here we have the screen with the calculator. We have all the steps, what they have to do in the calculator, step by step, and then in the screen we have the presentation with the screen of the calculator, screenshot of the calculator to tell them what to do following with the using the GDC calculator. So then this is another of the good features that we have in the PowerPoint presentations. So we have a structured content delivered. So another benefit that we have is a well-prepared examples with a step-by-step solutions, and the teacher does not lose visual contact with the students. So we have examples, solved examples that is already there. So you need to be writing, and sometimes when we are solving a problem on the whiteboard or on the chalkboard, we make a mistake, and at the end we realize that the answer is not coming, and then we need to check where my mistake, and then we change the problem with the mistake and redo it all the working. That is losing time as well and losing the attention of the students. But in the PowerPoint, the problems are already there. The steps are there, and the problems are carefully designed in order to make sure that there is not a mistake in the solution of the problem. So, for example, this problem, when we are using the formula to calculate the variance and the standard deviation, so we have the table where they are going to take the data from and how they can use this data to replace or to plug in into the formula that we are using for standard deviation and for variance. So we go step by step, explaining to them how to get the values that we need to plug into the formula. So then at the end, they will have the solution. So this is another example where it's good for us to use a PowerPoint presentation with maybe high level problems. For example, in this case, we are working with integration, right? The volume of the solid. So by rotating the region into the x-axis. So then all the diagrams are already there in the PowerPoint, so they can see visually what is the diagram that they will obtain after rotating the function. So then step by step, we can explain why we decide to use a particular method in the solution of this problem, right? And step by step again, we explain how can we get the information from the diagram. So all this is some of the benefits that is for us to present our lesson with a PowerPoint presentation instead of we go to the board and write and draw everything on the board. So you see that the explanation is part of the presentation, step by step, with labeling the diagrams, all the diagrams labeled for them to understand where the data is coming to replace in the formula that we're using for solving the problem. And at the end, we solve the problem to find the volume, right? Substituting the values and so on and so forth. And the answer at the end, we are sure that the answer will be the correct answer because it's already checked that the answers are correct. So we are not in the point where we can commit a mistake and the student will be losing attention because we have commit a mistake and we need to check again and revise where the mistake is. Okay, another of the benefits of using the PowerPoint presentation is that the explaining visually step by step by using the graphing display calculator. In our presentation, we are explaining not only with the Casio calculator, because this example, for example, using the Casio calculator, this calculator is the FXCG50 Casio calculator, right? That also apply for some other calculators models, like the FX CG20, which is almost the same, right? But we can use it for any Casio calculator. So this is using the Casio calculator, step by step, explaining to them what are they going to do on each of the steps of the calculator to find the final answer. But not only we have the Casio calculator, because not all the students have access to the Casio calculator. Maybe some of them have a Texas Instrument calculator. So then we also include in our PowerPoint presentation the same problem, but using the Texas Instrument calculator. We have the presentation with the TI-84 plus, so with the steps that they have to follow for these calculator, which are not the same steps that are using for the Casio calculator. So then all the steps are inscribed into the PowerPoint presentation. They can follow up and follow along with the Texas Instrument calculator as well, which is what else we have in our PowerPoint presentations, right? We present the use of the Casio and the use of the Texas Instrument calculator for the students. So these are some of the benefits that we have. And the last of the benefits that I'm listing here is the interactive learning opportunities. So we have the opportunity to interact with the students. So as we are showing them the PowerPoint presentation, we are not distracting on the screen, on the whiteboard or on the chalkboard writing. We have a contact with the student. We also something that is important in our PowerPoint presentations is the language, because the language consideration is important, especially when the students is not English their first language. Sometimes we cannot use easy language or a very basic language for them, but the PowerPoint considers a simplified language, a key vocabulary, explaining the key words for each of the topics, right? And also using the visuals for comprehension, right? Incorporating the step-by-step solutions. So all these is part of the interaction with the students. So we can have also activities that the student can use. For example, this activity is in calculus for a student to understand what is limit, right? Because sometimes we explain to them using the formula what limits are, and they just need to accept it as it is. But in here, they can understand what is the meaning of limit with an interactive activity that they can do it with their friends, and they come up with some information that helps them to understand what is the meaning of a limit and what the limits are in algebra, and also how the limits are going to be used in calculus. So with this, they interact, they work in pairs, and we as a teacher, we can follow what they are doing. So now we're going to come with the next point, which is the benefit of using the PowerPoint leave presentations in our math lessons. So teachers don't need a smart board or a projector. You can use this without a projector. In some schools, there is not a projector for every classroom. So in some school I have been working before, for example, there was a school where they only have one projector for the whole school. So how can I deliver my lesson if I want to use a PowerPoint presentation and then they don't have a projector for each classroom? Well, basically the student, they all have devices, and they have either tablets or smartphones where they can follow along with our presentations. So we don't need a projector to present in the screen, but this PowerPoint can be, as you can see, if you join using the QR code, you can see all my presentation in your device, in the second device that you have. They can, the same the students, they can follow along the presentation in their devices. So then you don't need the smart board or the projector to do so, because the student can follow the presentation in their own devices. Also, the student can see a presentation and they read live subtitles in their preferred language while you speak, as I explained before. You can change the language to the language that you want, and all the transcription will be in the language that you are selected. Even I am speaking to you in English, you can read in your own mother tongue in your presentation. So this is another of the benefits of using the PowerPoint leave presentation. Another of the benefit is the student don't need a subscription to participate in leave presentations. As you are following my presentation, I didn't ask you to have a subscription for the Office 365. You can just click on the link or scan the QR code, and then you can come in to the presentation and you can follow along my presentation, and you will have all these benefits. They can also pinch to zoom to see the slide more clearly, right? They can zoom the slide. You can try now. If you use the pinch to zoom in your device, you can click on it, and this presentation will be zoomed into your device. For a student that maybe they want to see a graph more clearly, they can zoom it, and also, as I said, they can screenshot this screen, and then they have access to that in the short time. They don't need to come to the teacher to ask what is this or what is that, because they have everything in their own devices. The student can also pay attention to the teacher's explanation instead of trying to copy from the board while the teacher is explaining, because this is one of the disadvantages of writing on the board. When you're writing on the board and you finish the board, you go back to the beginning and you start erasing everything on the board. And the students say, no, teacher, still I'm on the way, I'm writing. So then you need to wait for them to finish the writing. But in the PowerPoint leave, you don't need to wait for that. For example, I say to my students, okay, this is the formula that we are using. Don't need to write it. Just screenshot this slide, and you will have the formula for you to use. And later you can write it in your books. So we are making the student more responsible of their education, because they know that this formula, they can write it at any time. And then they don't waste time for writing the formula while you are explaining to them. Because what happens if they are writing the formula and you keep on explaining? They lose your explanation. And then what happens with their understanding? Is not fully understanding. So that's why it's another of the benefits of using the PowerPoint lead presentation. So this is summarizing this another feature that it said the student can take a screenshot of the slide instead of writing, helping them to be focused on the explanation and understanding instead of focusing on writing what you are saying or taking note of your comments, because they can screenshot your comments. Your comments are there in their devices because they are transcribed in their devices. So they don't need to worry about writing your comments or writing a note of your comments because they are all there in their devices. So also the student can navigate back to review previous slides. You can check it now. You can navigate back to the first slide that I show you. You can slide down, and then you navigate back. Scroll down, and you can go to the first slide of this presentation. The student can do the same. While the PowerPoint leave is in their device, they can go back to something that they missed in the previous slides. So this is another thing. But they cannot go ahead of where you are. If I am in this slide, you cannot move ahead of my presentation. You can go back, but not ahead. So also at the end of the class, a student can give you feedback, and they can also send leave reactions to you. Do you see some small smiley face in your device? If you click on the smiley face, I will see your reactions in my PowerPoint. So click on your smiley faces, and then I can receive your reactions. At the end of the PowerPoint, you will receive a message to give me feedback in different areas of my presentation where, as teacher, we benefit from that. Because the student can say, okay, maybe the explanation was too fast, or maybe there was a point that I couldn't understand properly, and then you can see the individual reaction of students. Sometimes the students don't ask you questions because they are ashamed that all the other students can make mock of them if they ask a question of something that they don't understand. But using the feedback, they can ask you questions that you only will read. No one else will read it. So only the teacher will read the question from the student. The student can say, I didn't understand when you explained this or this. So then you can go back to him or to her to explain what they didn't understand properly. That helps the student to benefit better from the presentation. So how do we start a PowerPoint leave? Well, to present the PowerPoint leave, the presenter, or in this case you teachers, you must have the Microsoft 365 subscription. So we as teachers, we need to have the subscription for Microsoft 365. So then the audience or the students, they don't need a subscription to participate. With a lead presentation in PowerPoint, audience members can see a presentation on their device and read the subtitles in the preferred language while you speak. They can use the pinch to zoom, right? Okay, let's see. To get started with the lead presentation, open your slide deck in PowerPoint for the web and go to the slideshow tab. This is where you got started. First, you go to office.com. So in the browser like Google Chrome, you type in office.com if you have a subscription for Microsoft 365. When you go to office.com, you will have this screen in your screen. So welcome to Microsoft 365. So then on the left, you can see that there is different software for the Microsoft 365, but we are using PowerPoint. So you click on PowerPoint here, and after that, you create a new blank presentation or start with a template or open an existing file. If you already have your presentation saved in your device, you can just upload it to the office.com. Like I'm doing here, I upload the geometric sequences, right? I upload it into here, and I can show this to my student. But we can do it with a blank presentation as well. If you don't have a presentation, you can make your own presentation here, or you can start with a template, or you can open an existing file in your computer, right? So then with this, we can start our presentation. Lead presentation is supported on Microsoft Edge version 80. Is also supported in Google Chrome version 72 and plus, Mozilla Firefox version 68, Opera version 60, Windows or Mac. Safari is not supported for presenters, but for the audience, they can use Safari as well. So, but to present, you cannot use Safari. You can use any other browser like Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, or Opera. Okay. Check your option settings. You click on the slideshow, then drop arrow net. Here you go in slideshow, you have this. Drop arrow next to present leave. Here we have an arrow. You click on the arrow, and you can see only people in your organization or anyone. So for the students, feel that it's better to use anyone can join, right? And you check your audio settings as well, right? To select your audio devices for the presentation. So the audio device could be your headphones and your microphone connected to the PowerPoint leave presentation. So next, you select present leave, and your presentation will begin with a screen that shows a customized QR code as I started my presentation today. So the QR code will be leading the student to your class, to your lesson that you have prepared for them. You also have the address on top, which is for a student that they don't have a QR code reader, so they can type in their devices the address that is on top. So the student can connect from any device that has an internet connection in the browser, iOS, Android, Windows, or Mac. For audiences accessing lead presentation on their mobile devices, is required at least iOS version 11 or Android version 8. Once your student has joined the presentation, you simply advance to your first slide as normal to start presenting. Once your student has loaded the presentation, they will see your spoken words transcribed on the screen in near real time. This is great for audiences when the acoustic of the venue are not good, or if you have students who have difficulty hearing, right? So they will read everything that you are saying. If a student wants to translate the words into a different language, they can tap the language indicator and select from all the supported languages. Once they selected their language, your spoken word will be machine translated into that language and show to them on their device as subtitles. Each student can select the language of their choice. So each student can be following your lesson in different language, even if you are giving your lesson in English. If a student wants to look back to any of the earlier slides, they can do that using the slide control that appears on the screen just below the current slide, and they can go all the way back to the first slide, but they can only go as far fast as forward as the slide you are currently displaying. So you not worry about they reading ahead in your deck. If a student is using PowerPoint Leave, wants to give you feedback, they can tap the feedback button, which looks like a smiley face toward the bottom right on the device screen. They can select from a handful of different feedback types, from like to puzzle and more. Their selection will be really appear on the presentation screen. When you end the presentation, the student using the PowerPoint Leave will each get a short survey where they get the rate to rate your slide design, speaker skills, content, and interaction with audience on a scale of 1 to 5. So this is one thing that I want to ask from you at the end of the presentation, that you fill in the survey that will appear in your device. They can also add any other comments or feedback they may have and submit it to you. The feedback will be collected in Microsoft Forms, where you can view all the aggregated anonymous responses. You don't see the names of the students that are submitting these responses. So it will be like that. This is the screen that you have in the forms. So they can fill in this as feedback for you, right? How was the presentation? How would you rate each presentation category, right? The feedback, and they can give you feedback on that. So when you end the presentation, right after the presentation, we get an email containing a summary of audience's feedbacks, the live reaction of the audience, and some recommendation on what to improve for the next time. Like this. This is the email that you receive with the average of the responses from the students, and also what they rate your slide design, the speaker skills, the interest in content, audience interaction. So also you receive this another part in your email, right, which is a very good, what I said, resource for you. Now it's time for question and answers. If you have any question, you can ask me questions that I can answer for you.
Well, thank you to Mr. Orlando for such an interesting presentation. Now it's time if you have a question or a comment about this presentation, feel free to raise your hand. We will give you a few minutes. Or if you prefer, you can write down on the chat option and we will read. And Mr. Orlando will be happy to give you a response or an answer. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment in the chat. Jyoti, thank you very much. I try to share my experience with you. Anyone that wants to join and say something or ask a question, I will try to answer your questions. No questions?
So we have a comment that says that the presentation was very informative, systematic, and well explained. Thank you, Mr. Orlando. So, yeah, you'd bag it. Did this comment. Thank you for attending. So if you have another comment or a question, so please feel free to write down or to raise your hand. So this is the moment. So we'll wait a few minutes more before the ending of this session. Well, if not, so I'll give you the last few words to Mr. Orlando to close the webinar. Thank you very much for attending. So, Mr. Orlando, with the final words. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very well for everyone for joining to our webinar. So these are some of the key takeaways for today. How to enhance your math lesson in order to engage the students and improve their attention. The key benefits of PowerPoint presentation in the math lessons. The key benefits of PowerPoint Lead, particularly for ESL students. And the steps to start a PowerPoint Lead presentation. The audience of the webinar will receive a video of the webinar for future reference and a special discount in our website depending on the quantity of resources you buy from us. These are the discount codes, and this will be sent to you in an email. If you want to get some of our PowerPoint presentations, you will have a discount depending on the quantity of resources that you want to buy from us. Please, for everyone, fill out the evaluation form for this webinar when closing the PowerPoint Leave session. Okay, and we thank you all of you for your participation and for joining to us today in this webinar. And we hope that it was informative to you and you get something that will improve your math lesson. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day and have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good day.